Hi, my name is Benedict for Higher Hertz. In this episode, we're continuing my obsession with delays. In this case, we're looking at EC300 from McDSP. Now, I haven't owned anything from McDSP before. They were one of the earlier manufacturers in the Reason Rack extension format, even though that's not where they started, but that's how I became more aware of them. They're more famous, or were more famous, for their compression type algorithms. And looking at one of their compressors inside the Reason environment when the rack extensions came out, I gotta say I was quite impressed, but not impressed enough to get it, simply because I tend to prefer to work with the tools I already have. But there were definitely some interesting things about that device when I looked at it. They have upped their game in a certain way. And by up, I'm not sure whether I really mean up. But this came along. They actually, when they released it, they gave it away for a little while. And I was just lucky enough to be at that point in time. And I picked it up, not because I was dying to have it, because as I've pointed out, I have delays everywhere. I have more delays than I know what to do with, which is not a point that I actually like to have. But nonetheless, I thought this is going to be interesting to look at and interesting to review, because obviously it clearly shows that McDSP are going in a slightly different direction, and having a look at their marketing, I see that. Basically what we have is a delay that has a lot of emphasis on being old-fashioned, on delivering as a character device. And probably not a bad call as such, in that ordinary delays, the market's full of them. Every door comes with at least an ordinary delay, so it's the unusual that people are looking for. We get three main flavors: the tape, which you saw, like an early digital, and then an analog or bucket brigade delay. Each does have a slightly different character. Within them, you've got various different versions of character as well. It makes for an interesting device. What I do like is the fact that you do have the ability to switch between these different flavors and characters. I'm a big fan of having the one device to rule them all. And in that sense, this definitely delivers that. The one thing that it probably doesn't deliver quite so well is clean, but clean and delay, I don't know. I don't think it's entirely necessary. So it is an interesting device in that sense. McDSP themselves, well, when I got there, I found there's a rather different proposition. They have gone down the path like Slate, New AD, and everybody else. Everybody's gone to this box full of Larry-looking devices. McDSP have tended a little to the Larry, but it was more of an old-fashioned Larry, but some of this just seems a little heavy with the spray paint, shall we say. They have a large range. They are pushing now for people to subscribe. I am not a fan of that as such, simply because I think that what the offers are not great. And while you can build the math, which we showed with the Slate thing, that, but if you bought everything, it would be so many trillions of dollars, but for $20 a month or whatever, I didn't even look at what their monthly is, to be honest. But who needs all these things? The impression that if you have all of these things, that their whole box of vomit, that you're going to have everything you need, is absurd. Yes, you could build an argument, but most of what they've got you just don't need. I sure wouldn't want. And it's not the same as in a real studio, like in the old days, where we carefully curated what we bought. Now the idea is that you just accept this vast amount of input, as though having 4,000 compressors is not quite as good as having 8,000 compressors, when in reality, one or two compressors, maybe three compressors, different flavors of compression, is what you need. Anything more than that is probably doing you vastly more damage than the cost of having compressor number 4. So I have some issues with that. The marketing thing, that people wanting to be fooled by this, has become dominant over there wanting to develop real skills. But nonetheless, quite a lot of product. Dig into it if you want. Channel strips, quite honestly, I haven't looked at any of their channel strips, but channel strips as a rule, I think, are so much, well, not necessary. We scroll down to the bottom. As you see, most of their focus has been in processing, in compression and the like. Fair enough, that was their thing. But they have expanded into having some other bits and pieces which they need to do if they're trying to do the everything you need routine. Their reverb is only convolution. Fair enough. I guess if you like that approach, then you're probably going to think the convolution is just superb. They did do Futzbox, which was, well, honestly, just a big novelty, or a way of nastifying all of your sounds. It didn't appeal to me. Some of that comes in with the Echo device. Now you see they've got two different prices, NV and HD, and it's not explained very well. HD seems to be the version that you buy if you want to use it with their new onboard hardware unit, which makes limited sense seeing UAD have just abandoned their onboard hardware unit. Otherwise, native is $150, just suggesting that it's normally $200. Bearing in mind I picked it up for free. I don't know where all these companies are going with pricing. I just don't. Sorry if you think that's overly negative, but across the board, I think the market is marketing itself into absurdity, and no good comes of this. No development of the artists themselves happens as a result of this. But nonetheless, I got the device, and it does have some cool things, some annoying things. So you've got the 3 models, as you see, blah, 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 stereo width, yay. This Sims thing, which we'll have a quick look at. I think it's about as much fun as playing The Sims, to be perfectly blunt. Presets from award-winning mix engineers. Oh, be still my beating heart. What up? I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be positive, but these are sorts of things that really there shouldn't be positivity about. This, to be blunt, is the closest I could find to a manual. I don't know why there is no manual. I did a search in my hard drive, couldn't find a manual for this device. And quite bluntly, I think that is shocking. For the kind of money that they're asking for this, I know I got it for free, but still the kind of money that they're asking for it's a high-end product, and they can't be bothered to provide a manual, or at least make said manual easy to be found. Not impressed. Mostly, I guess you can get away without using a manual, but at the same time, I think a manual is pretty darn necessary for this. It's good to know they're all optimized, and for V7, they're going down the whole V version like Waves are, and don't get me started on Waves. Yes, it is an iLok product. Make of that what you will. There is a lot of piracy, unfortunately, so fair enough. I just find that a lot of the iLok stuff seems to be a little bit painful, but it's been easy enough to work in the online cloud thing. So moving forward, the device. There's no bypass button. Now, one of the first things you notice, yes, you can resize quite dramatically, but it pops back to its default size when you open it. See here, this pops up at anything but hugeoid size. These fancy fonts that appear as tooltips here are all but unreadable. Like up here, I don't know what that's telling me. I can't read it. It might be degrees, but really, the whole idea of a tooltip is that it improve usability, not make me like, what on earth is that? I'm sorry, again, I seem to be negative, but for a company that's put so much time and energy into making pretty GUIs, their pretty GUIs actually undo their usability. Okay, it's cute, you've got this tape loop that's going round and you can open and close them and it's all very, but it's not great. So we've got time. We can put it into host lock or create our own BPM or even create our BPM out of tapping. All normal enough stuff. So we can set a tempo time, we can put it into triplet version or dotted version. I like that it goes really fast and then it goes to 1. The moves here get sort of a little large, but fair enough. We all know I don't use that anyway. You've then got milliseconds. Goes out to 5 seconds. Does go nice and short. Which is cool. There is then a groove thing. The groove thing takes note times and allows you to advance or retard that timing. So it helps offset the issue of perfect note timings. I'm glad to see that has been done because, I rail against perfect note timings, well, pretty well all the time. So you can advance by up to 100%. So you can move it a little bit, which means that you've got your basic timing, but now you can pocket that forward or behind the actual tempo. Great, it's good that it's there if you're obsessed with using note timings rather than finding them by feel. One thing I do notice missing here is an LFO. You've got a wow and a flutter, which is fine, that's all very tapey. But there's no ability to add an LFO. So in focusing so much on authenticity, they've taken away a really useful function. I would have to fly that in from somewhere else because I would want to use that a lot of the time. That said, the natural sound and movement in here is actually really nice. So can't really argue on what is there, just a little bit about what is not there. So your timing's nice. So we've then got this width and offset. Width set at 100%, but offset takes your 2 delay times and moves them slightly. And it defaults to that. You can then control what I assume is the width panning. I have to assume because they don't tell us. Set to 100, you can go out to 150, whatever that means, but I don't encourage any kind of faux timing. The fact that this is defaulted is good and bad. It's good in the sense that it always sounds good. It's bad in that we get the impression that all delays should sound like this all the time. We've got our feedback. Goes up to 150. Like the TAL unit, it's a little prone to wanting to go into, but nowhere near as much. Now we kind of want a little bit of that. Oh, let's go into feedback. Actually, no, I revised. It's really nowhere near as eager as Tal's device to go into, which is good. Although, if you use your gain and add, then it will rush into feedback. There is an EQ here, and as soon as you add anything, that's what's up plus 6 dB, you can hear it starts to get a bit excitable. So, to be expected in a sense. But you've got several places where you can EQ what's happening with your signal. You've got an EQ here, and these seem to be across the board. Tone, high and low pass tone controls. Now, like a lot of these sorts of things, it is driven by input levels. They impact a little bit the sound that we get. Let's just flatten this. So if we push our input by up to 24 dB, there's no automatic option to counter. We do end up with a slightly different sound, obviously pushing into their tape saturation compression thing. Speaking of saturation, there's a knob over here, which fairly quickly goes into a kind of drive. Little bit of it's nice, too much of it not so much. Depends what you're looking for. So that's your main unit. There's a stereo control, but I have no idea what that does. And there's a dynamics control which offers us a choice between ducking and compression. So what ducking means is that it will hop underneath. So whilst we've got a raw signal, an original signal, it will hop underneath that. So you can hear there that it's hopping out of the way whilst I've got the original sound there and reappearing once the original sound goes away. Or just a straight compression, which is looking to flatten our signal a little bit. Compression on delay, kind of a cool thing, and if you're doing tapey thing, then definitely something you'd want. Be nicer perhaps to see a little bit more what's going on. I didn't find it as simple to use as that on Reason's the Echo, which is built around the same tape delay idea, but possible to get nice sounds. I will show you through sounds in second part of the program. So there's your first thing. My biggest issue, as I say here, apart from the frou-frou of how it looks, but it does look nice and it is generally usable, is the lack of an LFO. Our next mode is the digital. The ubiquitous ability to drop bits. Same basic control over everything. We'll set those inputs and outputs back where they were. The EQ seems a little more sort of controllable. It's more for cut than boost. There we do have modulation here. So seeing it's there, I kind of wonder, well, why didn't they put it on the tape thing? Because basically everybody else has it. So if I want modulation, I can't use their tape version, which seems a little... I mean, if for some reason it was just impossible to upset this, then maybe they could have just flown it in somewhere else. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And sine, triangle, and random. That's all nice enough, got no particular argument. One thing that is nice is that your settings carry across. So if I've set something on this knob, it will carry across to the other models. That's good. It would annoy me otherwise. So everything tends to carry through from whatever you've got. Let's get that out of the way. So essentially the same, just slightly different character and the ability to modulate. There's also the EQ that you can put within the loop or post. So within the loop means that in theory each time this comes around, the EQ takes a bit more of a bite, or post meaning that just at the end. You can change different modes. I quite like this one, to be honest. Probably in part because it's similar to the one that I'm used to. The parametric, I possibly find a little fussy in the situation. Yeah, it looks pretty, looks authentic and what have you, and it's one of those things but with a mouse it just feels different. But they do see it as an extra part of this in the sense that they offer the option to close it down. The other thing is this sim, and this is going to be a big thing for them. And quite honestly, I believe that they've built this to be running after somebody else's product that has something similar in it and has got some chatter over it. You can add different let's try and turn this EQ off. There we go. So just listening to this. Now the sim's in. I've always found it a little bit painful in that sense. So you can choose these different honestly, I don't like them. This is an issue that I have everywhere. Most people disagree with me. They're entitled to this. Impulse responses to me just sound like something stuck on there. They just don't feel natural to me. You can put them either inside the loop or post loop. Reason has his own version of this and all the Audiomatic thing, and well, basically I never use it. There's just something about this process of putting the bunny ears on top of sound that to me just makes it seem wrong. And I know you can build the argument, but it's just a set of... But it just doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. But it's there, and you've got a whole pile of things that... apparently will make your life better. Apparently. It's going to be a draw card for certain people, and, well, I guess that's okay. Oh, something I forgot with this. This does give you the option for gain reduction. My bad, I forgot about that. So you click this, it will show you the output or gain reduction. I haven't found this meter to be overly useful. It's a character device, so you have to get with its character. In some respect, I like its character. In others, I just find it overly fussy. The third model is this analog. Bucket Brigade delays are a thing we talk about but rarely want. There are a whole lot of compromises. And again, we lose our modulation. I don't get why. It is possible to get very nice sounds from this. They tend to have a grainy, buzzy, almost digital kind of sound to them. Oh, there's our modulation. Sorry. COVID makes one a little slow. It is here. It tends to make the signal mushy. It's an interesting unit. And I think it probably could sound absolutely great on guitar. I used it a couple of times, as you'll see. It's not my go-to, I would say. It's got this big character change. There are other versions of it, like this, that are a little easier to live with. But to be fair, a true analog delay was never a particularly nice thing. They were cheap and nasty. But they were a solution, and if you got what you wanted from it, then it could be a beautiful thing. But if you're coming in expecting those pristine repeats that we're used to out of digital, it ain't gonna happen. Again, we've got the different mode, but that just puts us into the sim thing, which I think is kind of nasty. So your digital is there. Or back to the magnetic, which, again, just suffers. It sounds lovely, but it suffers from the lack of an LFO. But it does sound great. So that's really all of our features. Oh, sorry, except each one of these has the ability to have a second mode. So we take whatever our existing sound is and time is as it moves to the left channel and then our right channel. Whether that's affecting still, I honestly don't know. You can balance between the two delays, between the left one and the right one. You can control the balance. So if I only want feedback on the left-hand side, feedback balance. can go this way. So that is interesting. Feedback mix. I can only guess that that means a cross mix. Which seems to be driven by this as well. Again, overly odd in a modern world. We don't need to make such strange choices these days. The fact that these appear when you haven't got them chosen, again, just feels odd. Why not just give us a more traditional button that turns them, that locks them together? And then a ping pong mode, which is based on the dual, which will ping pong them. Again, why not just put a couple of little buttons in here? I think they were far more concerned with the look of this than they were with how good it was to use, which means that they're selling marketing more than they're selling a quality product, which is a shame because in selling their marketing, selling their fantasy, they've undone some of the good that is in here, for sure. So in terms of recommending it to somebody, if you could pick it up for free, sure, why not? Little to lose. In terms of going and paying whatever the supposed full price of $200 is, I'm put off by the company, by their obsession with marketing and the look of things and their frou-frou. The idea that, oh, well, if we get this perfect replica, then we're gonna, like automatically be like Pink Floyd, man. And I'm just like, really? Really? Dave probably hated his gear at the time. Now he probably goes, yeah, isn't it great? That sounded really good. But at the time, he probably disliked it as much as most of us disliked our gear at the time. None of it's as good as what we have in Adore. None of it. So recreating the nastiness in some ways is good, but in other ways is just unnecessary. So it's sort of swings and roundabouts. So we might as well, seeing I've got to the end of this, go through my good and bad. My good is that it does sound good. Its different models generally sound good. Personally, I don't like the sim thing, but some people are going to think that's better than sliced cheese. Whatever. Personal choice. The options that are on board are generally good. As I've said, it's great to have a one device to rule them all. So the idea that I can have one delay and move through all these different flavors and do through all these different things, that is good. I think that's something that digital excels at, and that they went a reasonable way to doing that. I think they undid it with some of their obsession with frou-frou. The bads is, well, I doubt the company's focus on the product, because their focus seems to be on the marketing. I understand that as a company, their job is to stay in business, but I'm not keen on a company whose attempts to stay in business are more around doing more of the same, copying everybody else, and doing this frou-frou stuff than they are with making product which is just so damn excellent that I can't help but say that at 4 times the price it would be a bargain. Because that's what I feel like I should be feeling out of this. It's good. It really is good in certain ways, but there are things that just undoes what it's about, which puts me off. So its fussy GUI is a problem. At anything but stupid sizes, even there, these things are unreadable. Who on earth thought that up? Give us a nice clean font. This is highly readable. Why couldn't you do that? And things like, oh no, we didn't want to mess up our faceplate, So we gave these really annoying different modes to give you the impression that you're getting more stuff, and removed the option to have an LFO on tape. Your competitors have LFO on tape, so why would you not do it? Seeing you're chasing them, you're chasing your own tail. And the manual. For a product that has some complex things that are not immediately apparent, the lack of a manual. The fact that you seem to be focused on trying to get people who, well, to be perfectly blunt, must be a little clueless, means that they should need a manual. Maybe they're too clueless to read a manual, and so maybe you've saved yourself some time and energy that you put into fancy knobs or something on your manual, but I'm not super impressed that there is no manual to help ease the path to using some of these unusual functions. So, try it. If you're interested, try it. But I just can't help but feel that there might be some better options which are a little more focused on their product than they are on their whatever it is they're trying to do to fill the market and extract cash off people. I wish I could be more positive. So, we'll pop this aside. Now, here is a piece that I wrote. Didn't intend to write a piece, but it was like, okay, I was playing with the device and along came a piece. So I thought, well, okay, why not use this all the way through? So here's the highlight of the piece. So nice and big and bold, and we've got a lot of bombast and as you can hear, quite a lot of delay running through. So delay is used everywhere, including for the reverb. So the reverb is a delay. It's not the most perfectest at doing reverbs, but it will get us there. So I'll turn off, actually I'll mute all of these as well, so we bring them in one at a time. We'll turn off all of these echoes and channels. To be fair, this has some chorus delay reverb on it. This was one of those situations where having some on the synth and then some after the synth really did add value. So we've got, better turn that on, a tape. And that does sound very, very nice. It's added a really good sense of space and repetition and bombast to that sound. Massive, overblown synth brass. Viola. Pure synth sound. A pair of the analogs with some movement to soften it up, but not to soften it up too much. I wanted this sound still to be kind of scrapey and a little hard. So we get both of that. We get some beauty and some of that hard scrape. Again, it's delivered nicely. The sound of the echo is quite different from the original. Now, this little motif, not a lot to it. Don't ask me what kind of sound it is, just is. tape, a little bit of push with saturation. So that really helps locate that within the piece. So our echoes are pretty important here. Strings. They come in a little bit later. So the big digital to add this huge, shiny sort of a wash. And that does move our delay to one side. So we've got a much longer time on the left. For mixed reasons, we've already got that brass on the right-hand side doing its thing, so we don't want to kludge that up. So this moves and uses the other space on the left, which the viola is in, but obviously being strings, they all kind of work together in that sense. So our mix is as it was, but just with the longer time means that it drags itself over to the side. So it takes that string from being kind of one-dimensional to filling up the space and adding the beauty that we expect and hope for from it. And last but not least, this little bell on the intro. That has a kookiness within the synth sound itself. And then the tape. Quite a bit of saturation. So you're looking to really use the tape sound. The lack of Elaphomia pushed the wow up a little harder, and we do get this nice evocative, spacey sort of sound. In the mix, it's backed by this little motif sound, which sounds a little like a blown bottle. It wasn't planned as anything, just I started with the sound, wasn't where I thought I was going, and that sound came out, and it was like, oh, that works really well in the mix. So that's how that got there. We've then got drums. They don't have any delay work on them. Bass. It's actually our tail bass line. Turned out to be perfect for this. It's going through a little bit of compression there. And digital EQ, the digital delay, looking really more for a chorus at this point. Didn't want it to echo. Just wanted a nice, safe chorus, which that has provided. So that's with everything in. Without. Pop it all back in. Oop, something left in its buffer, obviously. Cool. And then the reverb space. That reverb's just adding depth and some time, but same thing. You can see I've used the tape delay more than anything, despite its lack of LFO. I have used this probably the most. It's the default. It tends to sound lovely as it comes straight out of the box, and there's no argument from me on that. It does sound lovely. Overall, it's a very nice sounding device. In terms of helping build the mix, it was easy to use once I got my head around how most of the functions functioned. And it wasn't a total killer where I needed modulation. Then I could move to the other models. Initially, I wasn't sold on the analog, the BBD, but that's because it's very hard to love a BBD until you get the sound that you want. You know, when you hear that sound come back and you're like, "Oh, it's broken," it sounds awful. Then you're not happy. But then when it hits the right kind of awful, like I say, Dave Gilmour's guitar echo, you're kind of, oh, hello. So it's one of those things that's hard to love until you hit the point where it's just right, and then you're like, yeah, that's great. So it's just the nature of analog, true analog delays. They have possibly been a little forward in how bad it sounds in the default. There are other options there. But as a final word, I think the device sounds great and has a lot of options, which is really, really good. If it's the thing that you want to set sail on, if you sort of say, look, okay, I don't have a special delay that I'm going to fall in love with and use all over everything, then give this a demo. But give a few other things a demo as well, I think, to be fair. Make sure that you're comfortable with where you feel like DSP are going. I feel uncomfortable, but I feel the same kind of uncomfortable with Slate and UAD and basically everybody who's going this path of and selling us on the idea that we need 7 trillion compressors in a month-by-month payment fee, rather than the idea of let's have this one device that's just beautiful and brilliant. We are in the digital world now, trying to pretend that we're going to go back to the 60s and make everything right is just stupid. It really is stupid. And it's not to say that there weren't amazing sounds as a result of these things. It is great that we look at what made a Roy Orbison's record sound so super. It's great that we do that, but we can't duplicate that just by saying, okay, well, I hear 3% of total harmonic distortion, so I'll put a 3% total harmonic distortion knob that looks like it was built in 1964 and say, we are Roy Orbison. Because it doesn't work like that. There's a lot more to a Roy Orbison record than a fancy Bakelite knob. So swings and roundabouts. There are other contenders in this market. Give them all a look. Each tends to be a little bit because they are chasing the dollars. But if you're looking for a box that's kind of got the boxes ticked for you already, then there's plenty to recommend this if you don't have the caveats or the annoyances that I do, where I put them aside to make the piece, because once I decide, oh, I'm making this piece, and I was focused on the piece, not on the product, and it got me what I needed, where I needed, really pretty quickly and easily. So the product is far more good than not. It's just from the outside. If I were presented with the $200 price tag, which is apparently the full price, $147, I think, with their whatever the hell discount it is, then I don't think that I would have gone here. Not because the product doesn't work, but because there's so much other stuff that seems more important to them than the quality of the product. And that bothers me for a long-term relationship. I'd rather go somewhere where they've focused on the quality of the product. And again, this is an issue that I have with so many manufacturers, and to be perfectly blunt, I even have this problem with Reason Studios at the moment. They seem far more interested in their month-by-month package and throwing garbage at people. And this latest version, 12.2.5, which introduced new bugs. Yay! A new bug edition version. I'm delighted for the next version. So we've got this culture. And the reason that I keep hammering this home is that it's a culture that only we as consumers can change. We can change it by not buying these products that look like this, that come from manufacturers that carry this kind of marketing. If we swerve away, they have to change. The more we go, oh, but and fall for the fantasy, because that's all it is, then the more we encourage them to do this kind of stuff to us. And as a true professional, somebody who believes in and values my craft, it's truly absurd. I mean, imagine if I were a carpenter, say, and suddenly I watch all these young carpenters coming up, and they're going to buy their tools through a rent per month program, and all their tools are, well, they're pink and pretty and made of plastic, and all the focus is on how carpentry their tools look, rather than how useful those tools are. I think anybody would look at those carpenters and go, you, sir, are a wannabe. You, sir, are a powder puff, not a carpenter. But within the DAW music space, we've encouraged this powder puffery as though that's somehow going to make us better at what we do. That's my problem with the product, that there's too much powder puffery, not quite enough product. If they rolled off that extra little bit of powder puffery and filled in the product better, then I would say that it was about as close to a perfect Echo unit or collection of Echo units as we could get. But without that, it undoes the things that they do have. I hope you found this interesting. It is in some ways a lovely product, but it is in some ways a broken product. Go try it. If you like it, there's plenty to like. If you don't, then go find a product that suits your needs a bit better. I think that there are trillions of them out there, and they don't need to be so focused on pretending to be built in 1964 with Bakelite knobs. If you have any questions in general, subscribe, sign yourself up, show YouTube that we are providing value, ask your question. Once I become aware of it, I will answer what I can for you. If you have any suggestions for things you'd like us to look at, pop them in the comments as well. You have a great day.